We're here from Newark, New Jersey, Sunnah Social Services, to speak briefly about domestic violence. Just a small overview of what it is and how our community can help prevent it.
What made you do get interested in that?
Just domestic violence itself. Well, as a victim and survivor myself, I'm just passionate about it. I see so many women and men going through, we don't leave the brothers out, and children going through divorce, breakups, being arrested, the whole gamut due to domestic violence. And most people only think when they hear the word violence that's hitting or just punching or kicking, or you see a sister with a black eye. Domestic violence is way more than just the physical. It's the emotional, the financial, the sexual, all of that can be included. We'll get into some of the definitions of and how to break that down a little bit. But mainly domestic violence is about control. One partner controlling the other, or sometimes in a relationship they're trying to control each other, which is a recipe for disaster. Unfortunately, the statistics are higher for women than they are men, but we do know that they would probably be higher for men if more men reported it, because most men don't report that they're being battered by a spouse, or emotionally abused, or financially abused, or even sexually abused by their partner.
I want to say that as the epidemic of violence in our community, I don't believe that it's being reported properly for women either. I think it's underreported all around the board, and that too causes a reason for things to go swept under the rug, and specifically the Muslim community, but in the community overall. And I think that's the importance of the dialogue that we're having in general about domestic violence.
It doesn't discriminate. It's any race, class, culture, no matter what neighborhood you're from, no matter your education level. Domestic violence touches all parts of society, and mainly it doesn't matter what religion you are. Muslim, Christian, atheist, Buddhist, whatever it is domestic violence is in all parts of our society. I want to talk first about what some of the red flags are, because I think this is important with the question you asked before about divorce. We see a lot of the red flags and then we ignore them before we get into relationships or marriages, and then that's kind of like where it starts, particularly for the women, and particularly if you're vulnerable. Maybe you've already been married, or you just broke up with someone. And so we see these red flags, and forgive me for reading a little bit. The person has a family history of domestic violence, or they've had abusive parents or caregivers growing up. This is a person who makes sarcastic remarks a lot and disrespects others in front of you and kind of takes pleasure in that. This is a person who you should become familiar with how to react to what angers them or frustrates them. How do they respond to anger? How do they deal with their anger, appropriately or inappropriately? Another red flag is they try to control everything. They are emotionally distant. They're pessimistic about things that matter to you. So Wednesday we talk big about this, because one of the main examples is, let's say you want to go to school. You might be in your 40s, you want to pursue a master's degree or a bachelor's degree or whatever, and this person is constantly trying to keep you from pursuing your goals. Oh, it's not important, you don't need to do that now. The pessimistic attitude about anything that's important to you. They cannot accept constructive criticism or feedback, particularly from you, and then others as well. But in an intimate partner relationship, it's hard for you to accept criticism or feedback from you. The red flag that we agree in our group is the most important for women, especially women who are vulnerable, is you say to yourself, after maybe being intended to this person, for those of us that's Muslim, because I don't really know who else your audience is. Let's say you're intended to the person for a little while, and you get to see these little red flags and you keep ignoring them. Or if you're someone who's engaged, and then you say to yourself, I know this is going on, I see what's going on, but I don't want to be alone. So I'm going to ignore all of what I see, all of what I hear. You may even get a phone call. Somebody may email you or send you an inbox. I don't really think you should marry that brother. I don't think you should marry that sister. They might try to offer you some advice. 9 times out of 10, you're already in love. We're just going to keep it real. You've already developed some type of relationship with the person already. And so you just ignore that. You know it's not for you. You know it's not a good thing for you. but you go ahead and you marry the person anyway, or you go ahead with the engagement anyway. You see this a lot of times with women who are already pregnant by men, so they definitely don't want to leave the relationship because now I'm with child, and they don't want to be without a father for their child. So that happens in that aspect. The next thing I want to talk about is New Jersey's legal definition of what domestic violence actually is, and I'm going to read it off for you because this to me is probably the most important. Domestic violence in New Jersey means the occurrence of one or more of the following criminal offenses, and I'm going to, hopefully I'm speaking loud enough. First one is homicide. The second one is terroristic threats, kidnapping, false imprisonment, sexual assault, lewdness, which is like flashing someone or like the videos or something like that, criminal mischief, criminal trespassing, assault, stalking, which is a big one, like online or texting you, showing up at your job, sending you emails and things like that, criminal restraint, criminal coercion, which is like very similar to blackmail or extortion, criminal sexual contact, robbery, burglary, and harassment. I did earlier say sexual assault. The difference between sexual assault and sexual contact is assault includes penetration, whereas just contact might just be touching or feeling on body parts, but assault is the actual penetration of that. So of course most of us would say rape, basically. If any of these are happening with children, then it's not considered to be domestic violence, is then considered to be child abuse. So then there's a whole set of laws and rules, and it would be a totally different way we would handle that type of situation if this was happening to a child. That would more so be child abuse. In April, we plan to do our child abuse campaign to get the word out about child abuse prevention too. So if you are someone who is in a relationship, you can go to the courts, and here I wrote here at the bottom because this is Atlantic County, am I correct? Okay, so the website for this county is acsheriff.org, and so you could go to the court and pursue what is called a TRO, that's a temporary restraining order, and then most often, depending on the type of case that it is, it can either be granted or not. If it's granted, then you'll have a series of court dates where you would end up with a final restraining order. Okay, and most judges will not give a final restraining order if it's not absolutely warranted. So if it comes to that, it's because it's definitely needed and the judge agrees with whatever evidence they see and what you presented in the court. It's not something that the courts take lightly, because once you have a final restraining order, you cannot own a firearm, so you can't be a police officer, correctional officer, you can't work security. It goes on your record, you have to take a picture, it's posted on the website, and that record kind of stays with you. The person can make an appeal, but most often people don't win the appeal. The FRO stays unless the person who pursued the FRO, well, the TRO first and then the FRO goes back to court to say, I would like to drop the charges. So the next thing would be, why do people stay in abusive relationships? So there's several. Fear and low self-esteem, financial dependency, or they have children together, control, like we said in the beginning, pressure from family and friends, and embarrassment. Mona Lisa's going to talk a little bit about the embarrassment. People don't know where to get help from because we don't talk about domestic violence like it exists. So most often people don't know what numbers to call, what websites to go to, where the shelters are. They may know to call 911 if it gets to that point, but most people don't even know where to get help from. And then the last one, which we'll find big in the Muslim community, is religious commitment. You know, we may go to the imam and we're told, sister, be patient. Make dua, cover your brother's sins, or cover your sister's faults, you know.
Somebody that's physically beaten.
Absolutely. So I'm supposed to make dua and be patient while you busting me upside my head. Yeah. Okay. Or other types of abuse, emotional abuse, you know, financial abuse, whatever it is that I'm coming to you for as my religious leader. We all agree, I think, that most of our religious leaders are very ill-equipped to answer the call to domestic violence. I know in Newark we have a clergy unit that gets the training, and there are several people in that unit that people can go to, but in the Muslim community, our imams need training. They need training.
A resource guide,
and that's why we kind of developed Sunnah Social Services as well, so we could put that together.
What kind of training?
Domestic violence training. I'm right now in the domestic violence training with the prosecutor's office. And there's many domestic violence trainings, at least that I know of, that are available in Northern Jersey. So I'm not sure about Southern Jersey.
But I don't even agree with that. I think they also need Islamic training on it. That's the problem. Their go-to is be patient, as opposed to having real training on things that happen like this.
Well, they'll say sit down, you know, you bring one person from your side, he bring one person from his side, and have like a family talk. Okay, that still doesn't stop the brother from busting me upside my head when I address the problem. It doesn't address the root of the problem, particularly when it's not something physical, because the numbers are low when it comes to physical abuse, especially in our community. The numbers are much higher when it comes the numbers are much higher when it comes to emotional, financial. There's one we talked about the other day, and most people don't even know that this is even a form of abuse. It's called sexual coercion and reproductive control. I'm looking at the faces they making. This is when your partner sabotages your birth control, okay? By demanding unprotected sex, or lying about pulling out, hiding or destroying your birth control pills, or poking holes in your condom, or preventing you from getting an abortion, or forcing you to get an abortion once you get pregnant. That's a big one. That's a big one. People ignore that. Men and women alike poke holes. It's not just the women doing it so they can have a baby by somebody. It's the men doing it as well. Preventing sisters from being on a pill. I mean, I know that there's a difference in opinion about that in the Islamic community about even using certain forms of birth control, but I'm not like a scholar on that, so I'll kind of stay away from that part. But we do know, especially when our couples are young, and they may be in college, and the young lady doesn't want to have a baby yet. Sometimes that's when you'll find these things happening. Or when a brother may see a sister wants to leave him, so then he starts to hide pills and poke holes and do all these types of things to try to get the sister pregnant so she can stay in the marriage. So you have several types. I just want to name what they are if I did in the beginning. Physical abuse, sexual abuse, economic abuse, which is pretty much self-explanatory, emotional abuse, and then the last one we also talked about was cultural and identity abuse. That is like when you're in a relationship with someone, and domestic violence and abuse is not just your intimate partner. It's your brother or your sister or your mother, just the person you might be living with, because those are still all intimate relationships, if you will.
I want you to go back to economics, because you definitely kind of flew past that.
You know why? Because this one has become a little bit more prevalent, this identity abuse. So I just touch on economics. We're gonna go back to economic abuse.
A lot of people don't know that.
But with this one, it's when somebody threatens to out you. Okay, they threaten to out your sexual orientation or your identity. If you're in polygyny, and I know I'm saying the next word wrong, polygamy. Okay. So we're developing this habit now in the community where we're outing people who we find out are in polygyny. Okay. Your immigration status, they threaten you with your immigration status. Friends, family, co-workers using personal information against you, using your race, your class, your age, your religion, your size, your physical ability, your language, or like I said, your ethnicity against you in some way. And that's called cultural and identity abuse. So now,
he has such a perplexed look on his face. I'm so interested to hear what you think.
Because people are coming up with even more creative ways to mistreat each other. So you have to give everything a title so that people will know what these things are. And we know people who are being treated this way, and we can't put a name to it. We can't put a label to it. So here it is right here. You wouldn't think that somebody is abusing someone by outing them. Okay? That doesn't even, you never even heard of that. But it's a thing. It's a thing. So an economic abuse is making or attempting to make a person financially dependent upon you. So we'll see this a lot with stay-at-home moms. who are dependent on the husband. They can't leave the marriage. They've never worked, or maybe never finished school. They have a lot of
Everything's in his
children.
name.
Everything's in his name. Okay, so when he divorces me, or in our community it's called put you in iddah, or you're forced to ask for a color, you have no place to go. You have no money in the bank. It takes weeks for you to get approved by welfare and some of the other programs that are available, because they are out there. It just takes time for those benefits to kick in. And so this is when the economic abuse really, really, really takes place, because you are literally without anything. And you're living from pillar to post, usually with children. And you have to make phone calls and ask people, can you stay with them? Because your spouse, whether that's male or female, put you out in the middle of the night. So that's happening a lot too. And our agency, we are striving to be very diligent in assisting sisters and brothers with that particular kind of abuse. Okay. Our goal is to have maybe a facility or a house where people could come. They could email us or call us if they find themselves in this situation, and it would be a room available for them. So that's like a future goal for us, because it's just not available. A lot of times the sisters have sons. They can't go to the shelter because the shelters only take women, and sometimes just girls of they take women and girls, but the boys can only reach up to a certain age. So maybe the boy's like 12 or 13, now he can't come to the shelter. He has to stay with someone else.
Or men that's in violent relationships.
Or men that's, exactly,
there's no shelters
for them. There may be one that we know of. So New Jersey needs to be a little bit more diligent in making sure we have at least 2 or 3 shelters for the men as well. Okay, and you will find, I have all sons myself, so if it had gotten to the point where I needed to leave like that and didn't have a place to stay, 3 of my sons wouldn't be able to come with me. I would have to have them stay with someone else, and as a Muslim woman, I need my boys with me, you know what I mean? So this is happening a lot in the community. So these 2, this is called, that's right, this is called the violence wheel, and this is the non-violence wheel. So basically, in layman's terms, this is what a relationship should not look like, and this is what a relationship should look like, okay? And where you can find these 2 models, it's written very easy. It's very easy to understand. All of the categories on here: the power and control wheel, and this is the equality wheel, okay? And where you could find the both of these models and educate yourself a little more is it's called the Duluth model, and you can find it at theduluthmodel.org. And another very reputable website to go to educate yourself and get help is thehotline.org. Okay, for this county particularly, again, it's AtlanticCountySheriff.org, acsheriff.org. And if you are not successful here, then you go back here. The hotline.org is for all of the states in the United States. Okay. I just want to talk a little bit about the men. 1 in 4 men have experienced more of the physical violence: slapping, scratching, keying up your car, poking holes in your tire, bleaching your clothes, the waiting to exhale moment when she at the door smoking a cigarette because she done burnt her body clothes.
Like Jennings just put something on Instagram the other day.
Making you lose your job, withholding the children from the husband or the boyfriend so he can't see the children, taking you to child support spitefully, as some people will say, when it's really not necessary, especially when the person has been taking care of the children all along, whether that's your boyfriend or your husband or whatever. And then 1 in 10 men have experienced more like economic abuse, where the wife or the girlfriend is mainly the breadwinner, and they may not necessarily be a stay-at-home dad, but she's more of the provider or maintaining in that role, so to speak. Like we said, it's not a lot of shelters out there. There is help, but men are underreported. They don't report it as much as women do. And a lot of men are embarrassed just because, when we think about manhood, how you letting a sister hit on you? you know, you coming in with a black eye, you got scratched up, you know, why you ain't knock her out? That's the conversation that you'll hear amongst men. And you may be a brother who doesn't want to do that, okay? But we believe, Dawn is a mother of daughters. Halima and I are a mother of sons. She's a mother of a daughter and a son. But we all agree that women got to keep their hands to themselves too.
Yeah.
You have to. We understand that in our society, in our culture,
But we teach our boys.
teach our boys not to hit girls.
But
we're not telling the girls not to hit boys. Whoopi
Because once
Goldberg.
you hit him,
Yeah.
you give him the option of hitting you back.
You give him
Hit
the
first,
choice.
That's one thing.
Right.
When you give him the choice to hit you back,
That's
then
right.
that comes on
Right.
you.
Because
It's a different fight. It's a different
he's
fight.
defending
He's
himself.
defending
Most
himself.
people won't look at it like that because that's just the way we've been brainwashed to look at it. But he's defending himself. He has, like, you know, sisters hitting him with bats and frying pans and all types of things because he's arguing with you, or he disagrees with something you're saying, or he's trying to leave and you don't want him to leave. And he's keeping his hands to himself. He's packing his bag, or, you know, going down the stairs, or he's in his car or whatever. So you do have women who are violent like this. And unfortunately, because the way the system is set up, when the police are called, they still usually take the side of the woman. The man is usually always asked to
In
leave.
Newark,
and
I'm about to
we
say
taking
Newark,
everybody
that's
in
in Newark,
In Newark, we take
Everybody
everybody going.
okay, I don't know how it
Make
is
a
down
phone call,
here.
call somebody to get the kids. Everybody's going
That's
until
right.
they figure
Until
it
they
out.
figure it out. So I'm sure it's different, you know, in different counties or whatever. But I know for us in Newark, Essex County, we have a huge resource of domestic violence programs, and we have a huge court program through the prosecutor's office. So that's pretty much how it works up there. I know that every county is different, and I know we have much higher numbers, you know, and that's pretty much how it's dealt with there.
I was sitting here, you know, just pondering on everything that she was saying as a whole, you know, first starting with our leaders in the community. You know how they say, you know, sister, go home and be patient, but your eyes black, and you know, or your tooth is knocked out, you know, you're bleeding, and they tell you to go right back.
office.
Yes, go right back into that house, and all they did was talk to the brother, and then they tell you to be more obedient, you know, and this is insane. And the whole, you know, covering your brother's faults. First, the brother needs to cover his own faults, because when you ball your fist up and you punch somebody in the face and you bruise their face, you know, you just exposed yourself, because who did that? And you know, in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a woman who wanted to get married, and there were two different men. One, he was, you know, not very wealthy, and the other one carried his stick on his shoulder. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had no problem telling her he carries his stick. So when we talk about covering faults, he warned her to prevent her from being harmed. So we have to
Without even going
take
to
the
detail.
middle course.
Yeah.
You know, we can't be too far to the left and say, "Ooh, don't tell her," and then we can't go all the way and say, "Girl, he did this, this, and this." Take the middle course. He carries a stick, you know.
Not just that, but
doesn't
he
keep
warned
his
against
hands.
two different things. He warned
Mhm.
against financial abuse and physical abuse.
Yes. So the solution is in Quran and Sunnah. That's the first thing. The second thing is do to others what you want done to yourself. If you don't want this to happen to you, to your daughters, to your sisters, to your mother, if you wouldn't want someone beating up your mother, then why are you beating up somebody else's mother? Why are you beating up somebody else's daughter? You know, somebody else's sister? You know, it's like a lack of respect and concern in our community, because we as women are told, you know, obey him, and everything is looked at from a male perspective, when we see from Quran and Sunnah that Allah elevated and made us queens, and we should not be beaten, you know. And when we're misbehaving in a certain way, Allah gave the formula and the criteria in which a man is supposed to follow to handle that misbehavior. So follow that if you're saying that you're following Quran and Sunnah, and that's from an Islamic standpoint. And when it comes to being embarrassed, you know, you should not be embarrassed. You should ask for help. Sometimes we don't know that these resources are available, but they're becoming well known now. There are brothers that are speaking out, like Shadid, like, you know, he speaks from an Islamic standpoint. You know, we can't say no brothers are talking, because, you know, that brother goes hard and he's trying very hard to try to help
to
correct some of
advocate for
the
women.
problems. Yes, and for men
And for
also,
men, and
because
for the
he's
brothers.
saying how, you know, some women are just as toxic as the men are. So when you say, oh, I'm too embarrassed to talk about it, but there's a greater embarrassment now when you have to have DIFA step in, you know, Children and Family Services. Now the police showing up at your door, you know, or the neighbors having to call the cops because they hear the screaming from either you and him or the kids, you know, running out of the house. The embarrassment is not seeking the help. You know, Islamically we told to you know, ask those who know if we don't know. You don't know what to do in your situation, you have resources now. You know, we have a lot, and we do need brothers to step up. We need imams to step up, stop hiding behind the minbar and saying be patient. You know, I'm not saying it in a derogatory manner, but man up. You know, act like you a father. You know?
I don't even know.
That's all right.
What about, I think as a whole community, right, when we have issues, we shouldn't always just run to the imam.
No.
You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with going to see a therapist, going to the police.
That's gonna be my last. That's gonna be my last point.
This is what happened. Is that the lady will go to the imam, and the imam will play like he is a therapist.
Well, that too. But what I mean is, what I see a lot of times in our community, people
We just go to the imam.
we just go to the imam, and we'll expect the imam because we look at the imam like he's the preacher or something. We thinking he's a therapist. We thinking he's a counselor.
Right.
Now here's the thing: some imams are qualified like that, but others aren't, and so. We could say to them, yo, man up, whatever, but if they don't really know, like I know one imam who ain't really built like that. And he's a nice guy, he mean well, but it's not really his expertise. And he might just give the advice, yo man, ask me something. You know, I've never personally seen nobody.
But as the imam,
But he-
then it's still your duty to know who to tell that person
Yes,
to go to.
resources.
Well, no,
Not do the fallbacks.
I'm not trying to make excuses. I agree with you, but here's the problem. The root of the problem in our community is ignorance. On every side, Islamically, socially, from the community, from the imams.
So I think that we limit the roles of our responsibilities to our community based on our own titles, right? Like, I think that where we're at, just in the place that we're at right now, all of us have to take on more roles and responsibilities to each other.
Yeah.
Not just my brothers and sisters in Islam, but those children that are in this home, those are my nieces and nephews according to Islam, right? They're my baby brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So at what point do we as a community start doing more for each other, knowing we are so ignorant about what's going on, knowing that we may not have the resources that we seek or that we need? Like, it was a time where the Muslim woman was considered more sacred than anything else in this world, right?
Yes.
So at some point, we have to get back to that if we are the ones that know what is correct according to Quran and Sunnah, right? We know better. So it's really up to us to start showing the community better in a more of a forefront. Do I believe that sometimes the masjids let us down? Yeah, because they're ill-equipped for it. But that don't mean we don't have psychiatrists that are Muslim, psychologists,
That's right.
people who are knowledgeable about how to fix the circumstances in our communities, and each of us have to do more. If that means renovating your basement so a sister who has nowhere else to go can be used as a safe space until she is on her feet, if that means popping up at schools and letting the people at the schools know what's going on with these particular children who may now be acting out because they are suffering trauma at home.
What happened with a lot of times is that we get Islam is like treated like a cult sometimes.
Yeah.
And they don't want you going outside of Islam because it's going to embarrass us as a community.
I agree. I understand.
That was an aha moment for me.
Keep it within the community.
Yeah,
That's
so
why
that's
why the
why I
imam is
said-
the default.
Yes, have somewhere and stuff like that, because the moment you go to the government, you know what I mean, that's when it's like, oh, you against us and stuff like that, and then come the other comments from everybody else. Oh, she went to the non-Muslims, she went to the disbelievers.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, listen, and they don't know the story. They don't know that this imam is ill-equipped to deal with the problems that I had, but because he's the imam, he won't admit that and say, listen, that I can't give you any advice on that. Religiously, I can give you advice, but domestic, that's something that I'm not an expertise in.
Right.
Or therapy, that's not something that I'm an expert in. So it would be easy if he said, listen, I know this brother that deals with situations like that.
Exactly.
Go see this brother.
Exactly.
But
Maybe
no,
we
they
should compile a packet
I
for
was
the
sort of-
emails, right? Because that was one of the suggestions
Yes.
when we had went down to Washington D.C. to Howard University to discuss protocols and procedures for our masjids internally, like throughout the entire Muslim community. And that was one of the things that they suggested, is like coming up with a resource packet based on what resources we have or what should we do in this case scenario. And not just that, but the molestation of children. It's okay, brother. With just all of the things that are going on, just standard protocols throughout all of our communities. So we'll have a resource guide to go to, because there are Muslim therapists. We can, like, some women go to school for their masters, their doctorates, and they can help with these issues. The problem is the imams are ignorant on all that they do exist. And at some point they have to have a aha moment saying, oh, maybe I'm not equipped for this. Maybe I do need to forward this person to somebody. And I can't imagine how hard it is for imams who pray next to these brothers who are abusing their wives and then to chastise them against it.
Well, a lot of times that's because the imams are abusers as well.
Exactly. That was another thing
They
to
also
do.
go back to what CJ says, like the imam can't be the all-around guy. You like, listen, he not addressing my issue, I'm gonna go see somebody else.
Right.
But
Right.
the community is like, you gonna go see a disbeliever. This is our problem.
Or you gonna go see somebody that's not from our masjid.
Yeah.
That's another problem with
That's
Sunnis.
division.
You know, there's such a big divide in our community. Oh, she didn't go to this masjid, this one will go over here. But we have all these resources. If we just pull them together
Right.
and stop the madness and, okay, yeah, I go over here, that's cool. But we have a problem, and this sister can handle it without me having to go to the police, because I don't want to go to the police. I don't want my children taken. I don't really want him to go to jail. He needs therapy. You know, we both toxic. You know, maybe we both need some counseling on how to interact with each other, because, you know, I saw grandma hit granddaddy upside the head with a frying pan, so I just hit him with it. You know, I don't know how to handle my anger other than, you know, throwing some hot grits on him. I don't really need to go to jail. I just need somebody to say, listen, maybe this is another way that you can handle this. When you get mad, you know, count to 10, whatever, you know, formula they want to give you. But the resources are there. And where I'm saying with the imams, you know, I feel like if you take a leadership position, then it is your responsibility to find out what is out there, especially when you know that this is a huge problem. You can't just sit back and say, well, I'm not equipped. Educate yourself. Find out what resources are in the community so we can keep it, you know, within ourselves. Like if it gets extreme, yeah, you're going to have to, you know, go outside of that. But there are ways that you can handle things when they're at a small simmer than when it's a full-blown blaze. You know, once it's out of hand, nobody can really handle it except the police or, you know, children and families.
What advice would we give our sisters? And I'm sure in each of our individual rights we've heard this before. What advice would you give a sister who would tell you, I'm willing to go to counseling, he's not?
Go.
You go.
You go.
You go, and
You still have
you
to
let
go
him
because
know.
that's for your healing.
Yes.
You're not responsible for his healing. As Ayala, am I saying her name correctly?
Yes, Ayala
Like
Van
Ayala
Zandt.
Van Zandt says, I'm not going to fight you for your healing.
Yeah.
Okay, so if he doesn't want to
We
go
go to
or
marriage
she doesn't want to go,
regularly,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Healthy
Then
and
you have to
unhealthy
go,
relationships.
and maybe it will encourage the person to go, or maybe sometimes that has to be the deal breaker. If you don't go
Then I'm
to
out.
improve what's going on here, then I gotta help. I
No,
gotta help.
our community we
You know.
come from,
Yeah.
we heard you was doing that to a lady, you get stomped out. That was the old school.
Yeah, that's old school.
That's
Yeah,
old
you bring
school
that
right
back.
there.
Bring that back.
I need to bring you back.
We need to
throw away the
bring,
baby with the bathroom.
I won't necessarily say the belief system, but the training,
Yeah, bring
and
it
you know
back.
what I mean? The discipline, the protection, that's what we need.
That's what I meant by women were held as sacred then.
No,
Yes.
no, you know why it's different now?
Why?
Because black people don't got the white men on their neck.
Where?
No, I'm talking about like they did.
Oh, okay.
It's different. The way
We got comfortable.
Yeah, we got comfortable.
Exactly.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? When it was segregation and
Yeah, we
all-
gotta
when-
stick
when stuff was
together.
more
Our
blatant,
own, our own policing and
you
all
had to
that.
figure it out.
Exactly.
Now it's like, man, I live next to the white man. I ain't got time.
Or I just call the police.
Yep, they just call the police. The police don't care about
Yeah.
you.
And there are Muslim counselors. Nayela and Hassan Clay are Muslim, is a Muslim marriage therapist company. They have marriage retreats, them along with Shadid Muhammad.
Yes.
And in Philly, they have an organization that does healthy Muslim marriage retreats as well.
Yes.
So there are resources. I'm quick to tell somebody in a heartbeat. I know I came from a family who grandmother, who great so grandpa from the brick. Oh, you went fishing and then came home with no fish? There's a problem. And you know, with us coming through all of the different phases and changes within our own culture, we're at the point where right now we have to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
Like then they were policing themselves. We have to police ourselves.
It's an emergency.
And it's an emergency.
It's an
We're
emergency.
in a crying out loud
Yes.
emergency.
It's an emergency.
We need to do our own marriage retreat.
Well, there's one coming up in December.
It absolutely is.
It's sold out. Oh, it's sold
The
out.
rooms, the
Sorry.
bedrooms are sold out. It's in the house.
What we gonna do on here?
Oh, okay.
We gonna like once we go and get the
Get the
information,
info out, exactly.
we cookouts in Jersey, we do
Jersey.
family meetings. Like we had a family meeting at her house.
He be sweat. She be sweating me joint.
Oh, let's go to She Be
Let's
Sweating
do it.
retreat.
Right.
Come on, Akiva, come on.
Please, yes.
Be sweat.
Trust me. Representing the
I'm still
spirit.
Akiva.
I give all the advice.
You give all the
I
advice?
give all of it.
Got you.
I be keeping real with these. Y'all be want to listen, but I be telling
Well, you have to keep it real. That's the only
I don't
way.
think that we can do
There's
this
no
whole
other way that you
super
can get it. It
professional
has to
thing
be real.
without keeping it real.
No, it has to be real.
It's time for us
It has
to
be real.
like stop trying to fit into this box.
And that's sometimes
reality,
what
we have
we're
to-
Real
say.
and consistent.
I'm about to say that's what
That's
brothers
what it
need
has to be.
sometimes, just a man to man.
Like, hey, my man, the barbershop talks.
Yes. So
That's
that,
why we be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we do it.
that brings us to this right here. What we can do besides everything you just said, and besides praying and making dua and
I prefer the old school way.
Put them in the trunk.
Me too.
Start beating
no,
jokers
doing
up.
you can't just go around putting
Knock
people
on
in
the
trunks.
door, brother. You
But
About
if we
5
were talking
brothers.
about this on the way down, and it speaks to what you said and you, the old school way. But the brothers do have to step to the other
Need
brothers.
accountability.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
accountability,
You
absolutely.
have to have accountability. Let me talk to you for a minute. Okay, whether it's you going to the brother's house by yourself or 5 of you sitting him down in the masjid. If the sisters want to sit here and we're going to talk all day. We're going to have all the social service agencies, all the emails and Facebook posts, and we're going to come down to the barbershop and talk and get the word out. Where are the men? That's the question that I need answered. Where are the men who are talking about abuse and trauma and violence in our homes? Not just necessarily our intimate relationships, but our homes, our community, period. You see something going on at school or down the block or in the park. All of this plays a big part into why people think they can treat each other a certain way. You know.
Or sister got arrested, got a court case. My first question was, where the brothers at? Because the sister was like, all right, what's the date? What's the time? We'll be there.
Right. We
No
show
men,
up.
When when the judge look in the audience, he need to see a sea of hijabs.
A whole bunch
Oh,
of-
she's not by herself through this process.
No. Yes.
Because that level of accountability for ourselves. I live by a serious motto. If my sister is my hairdresser, I need no mirror. So I believe that when I'm riding with my sisters, I'm riding with you. I'm going to G-check your kids when they're wrong. And let me see your husband out of pocket. You're going to be mad at me because I'm going to embarrass him like he was my own husband because you know that you're wrong.
Not mind your business.
Not mind your
or
business.
that's not my
Doing
business.
That is my business because that's my sister and she's going to call me when she's sad. So it is my business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And until we get back to that point where we might not have to put them in the trunk, I just did you right. We need to have that conversation. To have the brothers checking them in a more diplomatic way.
Trunk is an option.
Just know that should be even our mothers who have teenagers that's out of control. She needs to be able to call up a group of her sisters and we G-check this teenager who is giving their mother a hard time because we're in a place now in this community where we have to take care of each other.
But let me just say this. We already have the group of sisters who's coming to your house. Okay? Where's the phone call that I can make to a group of brothers who's coming to check my son?
All right, the play.
Okay? Well, sisters, we come. That's no doubt about that. We're coming.
I know it's gonna be brothers who watch it, right?
So-
There used to be. I don't know about y'all community. I can say here and in Philadelphia, right? We had brothers that would go do stuff like that, and then where one, people don't want to go to jail after they beat this nigga down, right? Two, they go
But
through all
you
that.
don't always have to turn
We
the
don't have to
violence
beat him
down.
down. When he's on CC5,
I'm just telling you what happened. I'm just telling you what you said.
Right.
You go to jail for beating up some dude. Did she end up going back with him? And that's where people be like, you know what, I'm a
And that's
mama.
called battered women syndrome.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about that
How
today.
many times will a woman
But-
get abused before she realizes she needs to leave?
How many? Anybody know?
I don't know.
Anybody on Facebook know how many times will a woman get abused
Before she realizes she's
realizes she needs to leave?
We want somebody to answer us that, the answer to that question. And on what day do most domestic violence cases take place?
There's a certain day.
It's a certain
Yes,
day.
there is a day that more domestic
You
violence.
didn't watch us on Wednesday. You're supposed to know the answers to that question already. There's a particular day of the week, particularly during a certain season, that
Sunday,
domestic
football
violence.
season.
That's right.
There you go. Football Sunday.
And it is
Before Sunday.
7 different physical incidents that can happen prior to a woman realizing that it's time to go. So yeah, he hit her the first time, she lied, the box fell on my face, second time, third time, fourth time. By the 7th time, something may trigger in her head saying it's time for me to go.
There's a deep psychology
didn't
that
die
exists in an abusive
before
relationship, and that is why what you said is so important. You have to go get counseling. Going to the imam is not counseling, that's spiritual guidance. There's a difference between spiritual guidance and someone who is certified, licensed, okay, to do counseling or therapy. That is the difference. Now, if you're an imam, I'm not gonna look on your wall and see that that's your experience, that's your qualification, then we're okay. But if I don't see that, I need to know that you have a tool set that can help the 2 people who are, or 3 maybe, who are sitting in front of you, or 4 or 5, because you have this educational background. Okay, now I think that our imams can go and get that. I don't care how old you are or what part of the community you come from. I'm trying to figure out sometimes, how do some of them even get to be imams? So sometimes
That's
the question,
another problem that we
sometimes
don't
the
realize.
question also
No,
has
that's
to be,
another problem
well,
we
how
don't
did you even
realize.
get to be an imam?
An imam is an imam, but most of the time there's a board behind him.
Right.
Understand?
Right.
So it may not be the imam. The imam may agree and may want to do something, but
Right.
that board that's paying that
Holding
check,
him back.
that's what's really
Yeah.
controlling the
And
case.
that's
Say,
different
nah,
from the
girl, we ain't
self-appointed
talking about
imams,
that.
too.
We're gonna do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because it may not be the imam that's the abuser, but those board members,
Yeah. They don't. They told.
Or they don't want the embarrassment. They don't want the stigma attached to that particular master either. So you know that could be a large part of it. Here, it's just a couple more things I want to talk about. What the victim can do, and then what we can do as the responders, because that's very important too. So we already talked about praying, seeking spiritual guidance, and we talked about why the prayer, the dua, is important, because the whole situation is very stress related. So you need to do that just to relieve stress. Okay. We already talked about seeking help from the imam, your family, your friends. You can go call the police. You can go to the court, seek a TRO or FRO. Again, that's a temporary restraining order or final restraining order. Go to a shelter, get counseling, which we just said. Make an escape plan, which is also called the safety plan. And if you go to one of the domestic violence hotlines online, there's even a link that kind of pops up on your computer or your cell phone, that in case you have a partner that checks your phone or checks your computer, they won't know that you were on this website if you click this particular thing. You know, because we do, like I said, we have one of the statutes is stalking. So you'll have somebody put spyware on the person's phone or the laptop to see what they're doing. So if you go to this website and you click this particular thing, it will keep that person from knowing that you are trying to
I
seek
remember when I was
help.
going through the process, right? There was one advice that they had given and it just stick in my head. Like, you have your one safe person, and when you call, there's a trigger word that you're supposed to use. Like,
Yes.
let's say if it's cookies, like, I want cookies. The person know.
This is
This
what it
person
is.
should have a copy of all your documents, your birth certificate, your security
Right.
card, of your ID, so you can get these things
Right.
again easier. And they should have like extra clothes for you. Like, when you're putting a plan in place to leave, it's so strategic.
Right. It's called a safety plan or action plan, and they will teach you all about that on the websites as well. 911 responders are also trained. If I call and I'm asking you how much is it to get a pizza delivered, I wouldn't call 911 to ask somebody that. I'm calling Domino's. So normally a 911 responder knows that this is a trigger word.
And we'll ask for the
Okay,
address.
and we'll ask for the address, and they may give you a conversation about how much the pizza costs, and they'll try to keep you on the phone by asking you a series of questions until the police can arrive. And that never used to be a thing until the domestic violence laws and statutes got put on the books, and then they ended up getting the training. So that's, you know, something to remember. You can always call 911. You see I got it circled to you on the paper, and ask them a question that you normally wouldn't ask a 911 responder or person on the phone. Another thing that people always forget to do when they want to ask for help, like Dawn said, is go to the child's school. You can go to your school social worker, you can go to the guidance counselor. I don't know if the titles are the same in Atlantic County. Dean of students or anti-bullying specialist, a lot of different support staff in different schools. You can always go to that resource person or support person in the school to let them know what's going on and remain anonymous. And it doesn't have to be you, the victim. It could be the person who's the helper. I could know that, you know, Halima's son is being abused, so I'm going to go to his school, okay, and complain that I know what's going on in this home, this child, the mother or the husband, they need help. So that's another resource as well. How family members, friends, and responders can help is, again, by getting educated. We don't talk about this subject matter enough. We brush it under the rug. The old cliche, that's not none of my business. What goes on in this house stays in this house. What goes on in their house stays in their house. And this is why we have some of the problems that we do and things never get addressed. We have to know the signs. So again, we have to educate ourselves about the signs and don't ignore them when you know the person has children. Because what's happening, they're watching this and they're growing up to be abusers too. You are also helping to create the cycle. Okay, even if you don't want to go next door, call the police, or like I said, go to the child's school, or maybe go to the church or the masjid and let them know the name of the couple that you're talking about. Okay, I've done this myself with help, with backup, of course. I go and I ring the bell, or I go and I knock on the door, and I'll ask for like a food item, like sugar or milk or eggs or something that I know I don't need, but it's just to kind of break up what's going on. You know, and try to give the person a break and maybe give them a chance to call 911. You know, just to de-escalate the situation. Because they're not expecting for you to do that. They're not looking for the knock at the door. Calling on the phone, it's not gonna help. They're not gonna pick up the phone. But if you go to the door, especially with a couple people with you, you might get an answer. Of course, call the police. Again, if it's children involved, not only just going to the school, but calling Child Protective Services. DCP&P, formerly known as diapers. Document everything. You know, you could be the family member, the neighbor, you know, the friend, the co-worker. You can write things down too and help to document, because that person, they just may not have the wherewithal to do that because it's a stressful situation. And help them to develop what Dawn already talked about, the safety intervention plan. You could also be the person to provide shelter for them. Now that could be dangerous. You know, especially if you have a family. You don't want that partner coming to your home and then, you know, causing an issue at your home. But me, I always tell particularly women, make sure maybe that safety house or that safe house is somebody that your family doesn't know. So they wouldn't expect for you to go there. You know what I mean?
And sir, if you're looking to be a person that can house someone,
right,
please inbox anybody that's on this panel. Yes. Because we're always looking for someone to help us help other people.
We're looking to start that chain of homes, if you will, or of safe spaces where people can come to, whether it's 1 night, 2 nights, or 3 nights. Most of us have families, so we're all willing to kind of like pitch in, and we're trying to get more and more people to help us with that, because, you know, people get kicked out, people get put out all the time, people have to leave their situation and they have no place to go. A lot of times shelters aren't available, or, you know,
inequipped for a Muslim woman.
Right, and it's not necessarily equipped for a Muslim woman. Since we're all Muslim on the panel, you know, we have to reiterate that and let people know that's very important for us. We can't just send our Muslim women out with their children into shelters that are not Muslim friendly. You know, we have to find and or create more shelters that are Muslim friendly, because a lot of the women, you know, they may be afraid to be around male staff. Like I said, they can't take their older sons with them, or their mahrams, or their guardians. So we are trying to put a list together of people who are willing to at least take someone there for the weekend until maybe they can get to court on Monday. That's our mission. So you said you wanted to say something else. I forgot what you were saying.
Get the masjid help with that also.
Yeah, we're also going to be, as we are beginning this process, we're going to ask, you know, some of the masajid to jump on board. There's different rooms in the masjid, you know, where sisters could stay, families could stay. to get away from the abuser and feel safe and protected while they're there. So we're going to be putting that together as well. So,
And the more we discuss it, the more we make it normal, the more we should be empowering people to know that this is really happening and we're looking to help fix it. Because when we don't discuss it, it goes just like the people who don't report it, it goes unnoticed or unwilling to be changed because people don't know.
and this is just the beginning. Like, we're just starting out. We don't have all the answers. You know, you see us with our paper here. You know, we don't have business cards yet because we're literally just starting out. But you have to start somewhere. You know, so we do the Facebook Live. We post stuff on Instagram. Again, like I said, we're going to go hard for child abuse in April, which people should go hard for child abuse all year round, to be honest with you, because children and old people are helpless at this point. But in April, we will go hard about child abuse, and hopefully by then we'll have, you know, have developed a little bit more literature that we can kind of post online or be able to mail out, you know, if people want it, and maybe even begin to give some classes. So,
I got a question.
yes.
How often y'all think that's spoke about in the Masaj? Besides Imam Shani?
Not at all.
Never.
Not at all.
I can say that
I've heard about
no, I can honestly say, at Masjid Ashabu Yamin, I'm saying it right, Ashabu Yamin in East Orange, I never pronounced that correctly. I have heard the imam there give a khutbah about the treatment of the women and the treatment of the women and the children. I've heard him give a talk about that.
I've heard him
before,
mention it in the khutbah, but that's not the title of his khutbah.
Yeah.
That's not the whole khutbah. In the khutbah, he might say it. He might touch on it. But yeah, I mean, and the women feel it. We're like, yeah.
Oh, we get it.
But
We
that's
understand.
the reaction from the men.
Yeah. And that's probably the only one that I can really say has touched on it, and is an advocate against abuse.
And that's also because
you know,
he sees the women come to him.
Yeah, it comes to him a lot. It comes to him a lot. But again, the resources are not there, and a lot of times people don't want to talk about it. They don't want people at the masjid to know what's going on. I mean, the physical abuse is obvious. You see a black eye, you see a bruise.
No, it's
you
easy
know?
to cover up. In our
But it's
community,
also
like I
easy
said,
to cover
you
up.
go in
if he's
there,
doing the
you
cover.
flip the niqab, you tell the imam sees it,
Right.
he tells you be patient, you flip the niqab down, and you keep going. So everybody doesn't see it.
Do a resource list of Jersey resources, specifically North Greater area, because that's where we're from.
We have a resource list for where we live,
Right.
but we would be
Each
glad
community should
to assist
empower.
you in putting one together for this area here, because I'm not familiar with any of the resources down here.
But we should give them to
That's
every
that's
imam.
something that
But we
can
want
get,
every
exactly.
imam and every
That's something we
masjid
can
to have one.
definitely
To have one. Every masjid should have a resource list and at least several safe spaces, I like to say, where a sister or child or family could go who are dealing with this
How
problem.
many situations you actually heard about like that?
Between emails,
Between
personal encounters, and
You mean today?
and messenger,
No, I mean like how often is that?
I'm saying, you mean today?
often.
Really?
Often.
Well,
Today
men-
alone, I'm dealing with 3.
well, men-
and that's-
On our way down here, we're trying to arrange for a sister to be in a safe space.
Yeah. On the phone. While I'm driving, we on the phone and emailing back and forth, texting, because we need a place for somebody to stay. So it's often.
And from a situation, like we say, it's abuse, period. And the situation we're talking about for today isn't even physical.
And when y'all investigate, right, what would be some of the main reasons?
Polygyny.
She's out the house.
Let's just talk
She's
about that
gone.
part. Polygyny.
Not just that, but she's
And polygyny
she's
done
been
wrong.
kicked out of her house. She needs a
Right.
place to stay
Right.
now.
Right, but what's
Taking on more
No, her-
responsibility than what you can handle. That's what I mean by that. Taking
so
on
he
more.
just ditched the
Just
one-
ditched the sister, and now he's with the other one.
And she
Out of
has
her
a
house.
child.
Okay.
Out of her house. Like I said, we're saying she's got to go, not out of his house, out of her house or their house. For
And this
umpteen
goes
years.
on a lot, and it's not just the Muslim community.
It's
It's
not.
the Christian community.
It's not just
So we're not just
Muslim.
gonna isolate us and make ourselves look bad. It's going on everywhere. We
But
get
in
phone
the words
calls,
of my good brother,
emails, and
he said
text
we
messages
can't talk
from
about
everywhere.
other people's experiences. We are talking
Talking
about
about
our
ourselves.
own
That's true.
experiences.
Yes, that's true.
So I can't sugarcoat nobody else's stuff, but I know how difficult it is for
Yeah.
us as Muslim women to feel protected.
Right.
And it seems like
And we know
somehow
we
in
know
our
we're gonna catch a lot of flack. We know that already, and we don't mind because again, if nobody talks about it, our sisters are gonna keep getting abused.
But we
And it's not okay.
understand we're gonna be little sisters.
I
Yeah.
remember what I wanted to say.
But it won't be us.
We're gonna be those
No
sisters.
No sister,
And that's fine.
no sister left behind, no child left behind, no brother left behind.
And we're fine with
Okay.
that. I'm a butterfly. Whatever masjid I land at, that's where I am. I don't have to associate myself with one particular
Same
one.
thing I say when they
simply
say,
because
what match did you go to? The
I'm
match that they
Muslim.
all pray 5 times a day. That's the one I go to.